Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. I'm pleased to be joined with Kevin Hirsch, the Chief Agricultural Editor of SaskAgToday.com, and our guest today, Chris Lane, who's the newly minted President and CEO of the Saskatchewan Trade and Export Partnership. I'm Ryan Young, Agri-News Director with 620 CKRM in Regina. And Chris, it's a pleasure to have you on the roundtable today and just kind of walk us through what led to you taking on this role and how excited are you?
Well, thanks a lot for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And really, the role here at Saskatchewan Trade and Export Partnership feels like a natural evolution, a natural career step in a space that my previous role at Economic Development Regina supported, and my role before that at Canadian Western Agribition supported directly as well. So, really, it's all about platforming Saskatchewan companies doing great things, exporting products, finished goods, commodities around the world. And I think, we hear it from our political leadership all the time that Saskatchewan has what the world not only wants, but needs. And we have a real window here to continue to grow and prosper. And that's the work of STEP, and that's the work of the other organizations I mentioned that I've been part of. So to come into a leadership role and be part of growing that and part of making sure that our companies based here in Saskatchewan continue to grow as well, because that means jobs, that means revenues, that means our communities thrive, all of it. It's all tied together, and that's a pretty exciting opportunity. And Saskatchewan is such a great place to be able to promote and to advocate for. So it's easy to get excited about all of that work.
So Sask Trade and Export Partnership, is it pretty unique? Like it's a public-private partnership with a board of directors. Do other provinces have similar entities, or is this a bit unique?
It's an interesting thing, Kevin. In other places I've been in other roles, I've heard from other provinces or other companies in other parts of Canada that know about STEP and say, "Wow, that's a really unique organizational model you have. We wish we had something like that. STEP does such a good job. It's got a good reputation globally from our counterparts here in Canada." And so, yeah, so it is unique. It's established at a core principle. It's a perfect example of a public-private partnership. It's an independent organization with its own board of directors, works very closely with the province of Saskatchewan and the Ministry of Trade, and ultimately it's member based. So private industry is at the table, and that's the driving force behind STEP. Of course, you can't do that without close collaboration around policy and activation and prioritization with the provincial government. And so I think STEP has a successful model of both of those inputs. And our strength really as an organization is the fact that we can be both of government and both of private industry and advocate at the same time.
We're in a time when there's never been more talk of trade and tariffs and trade disruptions. What does that mean for trade going forward and STEP's role? I know it's a little unfair. You haven't even actually been in your new position yet. It's not till September, but I'm sure you've been thinking about that.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about this. Even in my role at economic development, it's been the headline for the past, 6, 7, 8 months. So it's definitely on top of mind. I think it's that uncertainty, the trade environment globally and with the Americans that we find ourselves in now, really underscore the importance of an organization like STEP. If there was ever a time where you needed an agency with the sole mission to help Saskatchewan business and resources prosper through global trade, this is it. Not only do we need some certainty around our largest trading partner in the US, but now more than ever, we need expertise in market diversification, and Saskatchewan companies need guidance and expertise on how to diversify their own customer base. So all of those things are happening at once. I think, as I said, there's never been a more important time for an organization like STEP to do what it does. And so while we always wish that the conditions were more certain and we weren't dealing with things like tariffs and trade policy all the time, if there was ever a moment for the industry to turn to step, I think this is it.
Now, Chris, I'm just kind of curious with what's happening with Canada and the US and to the provinces to a certain extent. Is that kind of part of the reason why you decided to take on this opportunity at STEP?
Yeah, well, I think the window to make exponential gains in the export sector is really open for Saskatchewan right now. And a lot of credit goes to our provincial government and the strategies around opening the international offices and being present. Um, I heard someone say once that the world doesn't really wake up and think about Saskatchewan, so we have to be the advocates for that. And I think that is true. And we know that there's competition in a lot of these markets for the goods and commodities that Saskatchewan produces. So we can't take it for granted. So it's that scenario that I think there's a high potential for growth, a high potential for impact, and as a natural evolution around sort of provincial economic development. That's what excited me about the opportunity. So I like challenge. If it was easy, I wouldn't be interested. But it's important, and that's probably the most motivating factor.
Now, producers that maybe aren't quite tuned into STEP's activities in the past might look and say, well, we've got the Canola Council of Canada promoting canola around the world. We've got Pulse Canada in pulse crops. We've got Cereals Canada, which includes membership like Sask Wheat. But STEP is a different model. You actually work together with member companies that are exporting. That makes it a little bit different than broad promotion, eh?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, there's no shortage of work for sort of the constant advocacy for Saskatchewan products, whether that's at a grower commodity basis or whether that's a finished product like a manufacturer or something like that. And you know what I think is important, especially in Saskatchewan and especially in agriculture, is that we really understand and recognize the importance of the whole ecosystem, right? So it's not the pulse growers or the canola council, have a real role and they have a real voice around advocacy, whether that's on policy, or trade. But also, a company like Bourgault or Degelman, which is, pretty important to those industries here in Saskatchewan too, also deserve some advocacy and an organization that's advocating directly for their finished products and market access and things like that. So I think this is Saskatchewan's superpower is the ingrained collaboration around the ecosystem. Like we all know the importance of the ag sector in the wider economy here. More than half of STEP's members are identified as in the agriculture sector. So you don't have to throw a rock very far to hit something or some company or some policy that's directly impactful to the agriculture industry here, which is directly impactful to everyone's economic prosperity in this province.
This will be kind of a multi-pronged question, and you can hit as many angles as you want to, Chris. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on maybe some opportunity or just your general thoughts on, when it comes to our trade relations with China. We know that's a bit frosty at the moment, as well as India, due to various reasons. But there's also some good news as well. For example, Australia lifting their BSE restrictions on Canadian beef as well. And even back home here, there's a lot of effort to reduce internal trade barriers to kind of reduce our reliance on the United States. So just wanted to get your thoughts on those things and how maybe your background from being the head of the Agribition to economic development of Regina and now uh, stepping into this new role might help out in that regard.
Yeah, there's lots to talk about on here, so maybe I'll try to keep it focused. But I think one of the silver linings about what's happening with our American neighbors is that it really has brought into sharp relief the need and the opportunity for market diversification and export diversification, and as you mentioned, internal trade. Now, I think well, that's the internal trade is an important piece here, and it's encouraging. I think the the kind of products that Saskatchewan does so well in, I just want to temper some expectations around. It's not going to solve an entire trade policy problem by breaking down internal trade barriers within Canada, but you know what? We'll take it. So we support it. On the global market access side, I think, and I'm not a political expert, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but when you talk about India and China, those are trade disputes. Like maybe I'll say this: trade is being used as a lever on a wider, political or multifaceted situation there. And so it's unfortunate and it's unfair that in some cases Saskatchewan producers and Saskatchewan companies are being used or levered that way. If it was just about the business, if it was just about the market opportunity, it would be a no-brainer and we wouldn't even be dealing with. There would be no wrinkles to iron out because the business case is so strong. And that's what we would advocate for, is like get back to the fundamentals of what free and fair trade looks like. So I think those are the opportunities. I think, even when we're talking about the Americans right now, it's the whole goal is to get to freer trade. So, let's not rush to add, whether it's more measures to make it more complicated or more retaliatory. Are we always doing things and advocating for things that make it easier for Saskatchewan companies to do business with anybody that wants to do business with us? That's the end goal. And so if that's our North Star, I think we'll get there. Our products, our reputation are strong. What we do is in demand. And if we can get the politics working in the right direction, then I think the business case will take us over the line.
Now, a lot of people will be aware of your predecessor in this role as president and CEO of STEP, which is Chris Decker. And before that, if memory serves, I think it was Lionel LaBelle. But I've had a little bit to do with STEP over the years, going to Agritechnica in Hanover, Germany, with the equipment manufacturers. I've been aware of some companies that have asked STEP to do market research on particular topics. So give us just people see the head of the organization, but you've got a fair number of people and a fair bit of horsepower behind you, right?
Absolutely. I think, you mentioned Agritechnica, and STEP is leading a significant delegation to Agritechnica in November. I think it will be Saskatchewan's largest ever footprint there. And so those are kind of opportunities are really being realized because of the expertise and the depth within STEP. There's 20 people that work there that are absolutely dedicated and are genuine experts in the field around, whether that's market access in South America or navigating the Chinese, system of being able to import. So the list goes on and on and on. And there's a real value in that, which is why I was saying before, I've been approached long before I ever considered being part of STEP myself by others within the country that watch what STEP does in market and says, "Wow, that's what an asset you have in Saskatchewan. We would be so lucky to have a version of that." So I think there's a long history of real tangible results facilitated by STEP, and so I think it's in my position, that's a motivating legacy to live up to. I know that we want to make sure that we only continue to grow it both in size and impact.
Now, this may be a little early to ask, but I'll ask anyway. And considering that you don't officially start for another month or so, but talking about the opportunity that you have at STEP and looking forward to it, specifically, is there any kind of like step one or kind of an initial plan that you want to kind of put into action as soon as you step into the chair?
I think, like I said, I think the North Star for this kind of work is really making sure we're using the agency to get to a system of freer and more prosperous trade. Like that is so important to Saskatchewan. It's so important to the agriculture sector in particular. And, Ryan, you asked about my history around this at Agribition, and there was a good example where we came into an organization and we clearly decided that we wanted to lever Agribition's position around the world to help market access and help international sales of Saskatchewan cattle genetics around the world, and we did that. And what was so encouraging about it is when we flagged that, we said we wanted to increase our impact there. the ecosystem really rallied around it. So, you had the producers themselves, you had the provincial government, you had the federal government, you had STEP all sort of push their shoulders collectively to the wheel. And I think the same thing can happen here when I really get into STEP and we start activating it is using that North Star philosophy and helping the companies where they need it and understanding that we live in a different time of trade volatility with what was our biggest customer. And so um, if we can not only maintain the access to that market, but also help these companies understand the potential in the other markets. And the other opportunity here, by the way, is understanding how STEP can help develop industries and resources that are coming online that aren't maybe not that are non-traditional, right? I think there's a huge opportunity for Saskatchewan companies in the defense sector. I think we're going to see exponential growth in the critical minerals mining and processing sectors. And so all of those things are going to be net new additions to Saskatchewan's economy. And I think STEP has an important role to play in making sure that as we do that, there's a market for those Saskatchewan products as well.
Is there kind of a message that you want to give to the folks over at STEP or to the agricultural community as the incoming president and CEO?
I think it's one about genuine excitement. I think anybody who knows me and has worked, with me and for me in these roles, knows that that I'm a sort of a incessantly optimistic person, and I think the state of Saskatchewan is easy to be optimistic about. So while there's challenges, while there's differences to overcome even with our own country about some things, I think this is genuinely an exciting time. We should really be cheering each other on and cheering for Saskatchewan. I mean, what an opportunity here to have a national conversation about building or rebuilding Canada's trade infrastructure. Like that's going to happen. We've really got alignment across the country around things like ports and pipelines and railways and highways. This is generational in terms of its opportunities. So, like I said, while there's always challenges, I'm can't help but be relentlessly optimistic and excited about what this future holds for this province. And I'm just sort of honored to have a chance to play a small part in it.
Well, we look forward to what you're going to do leading STEP and the work that you're going to do moving forward. And we also want to thank you for your time and joining us on the roundtable. We appreciate it.
Really appreciate the invitation and the time. Take care.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the SaskAgToday.com roundtable. On behalf of Kevin Hirsch and Chris Lane, I'm Ryan Young, and saying so long until next time.